Yo, 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 welcome to the Sideline Story. Boy Ray Swish. I'm here with my boy King Eli. What's up, man?
What's going down, man? What's going down?
A little change of pace. My boy driving right now, so excuse everything, but we just gonna give you
Apologies.
a quick recap, real quick. We're gonna be real quick with it. Game 4, the Mavericks versus Clippers, and you were actually in the building for the game.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so for me in the first quarter, the New York and Philadelphia game was still going on, so it was I had like a delayed broadcast, so when I came into the game, it was probably like 9 to 10 minutes left in the first quarter. So I just missed like a small percentage of the first quarter. But by the time I got into the game, it was a little back and forth. I saw Luca pick up 2 fouls and 2 quick fouls at that. And there's 2 cons that come with that, unfortunately, which is you can't have Luca off the floor because you risk the lead being ran up. And the other part that sucks about that is on defense he becomes an immediate liability. So now the defense is lackadaisical. There's no effort. You kind of, for the most part, you have to let your defender blow by you just because you can't risk the contact, especially when they're going into the paint. And
Yeah.
and it sucks because they're playing against crafty ball handlers like James Harden and like Paul George, guys who can create off the dribble and kind of make it tough for you as a defender and make it easy for you to draw that third potential foul. So, how you feel about those first 2 fouls?
Man, Tony was trying to give it to him early. You can see
Mm-hmm.
it. We didn't have
But
the first quarter, bro. It seemed like everything was going the Clippers' way, bro. Foul calls, like everything, bro. Felt like it in the in the stadium.
yeah, yeah, it seemed like the stadium has some arena has some pretty good energy. In the first quarter, we saw Luka pick up 2 fouls, we saw Harden pick up 2 fouls, and we saw Zubac pick up 2 fouls. It was a back and forth game. Unfortunately for the Mavericks, it was another slow start from the 3 point line, especially it resembled a lot of game one. We saw the Mavericks go 0 for 5 from the 3 point line. That turned into 0 for 6, then 0 for 7. And what started to happen in our bad shooting slump, it was the reverse on the other side of the court. As Paul George, he started cooking from 3, from 2. He got to all of his spots. He started hitting and ones off floaters. He kind of got everything he wanted. We couldn't really stop him to save our life.
No,
Him and James Harden. Harden actually got aggressive at one point in the first quarter. They went on a 17-2 run. Um, Paul George got real hot, and they started playing good on defense. And Luca had a slow start for the most part. Kyrie went scoreless in the first quarter. So, give me some insight on the first quarter from like inside the arena from what you saw.
everything was jumping. Uh,
Yo, oh, he cut out. I don't know, but I'll keep it pushing. What I saw, Paul George got hot. He had 10 points. 10 turned into 13, and 13 turned into 16. Like I said, this game resembled game one from a shooting standpoint. The Clippers was 6 for 9 from three, which turned to 7 to 10 from three, which turned into 8 to 11 from three, and they shot 72% from the 3 point line, and they shot 13 for 20 from the field goal, which was 65% from the field in the first quarter. It was 39-16 at the end of the first quarter. What I noticed when the Mavericks aren't hitting threes, they have a difficult time playing the game of basketball. And like I said, in game one, the only team that shoots more than threes than the Dallas Mavericks is the Boston Celtics. They had difficulty creating quality offense. What we saw was the Clippers really playing to their potential in the first quarter. This is what we expected coming into the series. What we didn't expect was the Mavericks to shoot so poorly from the field. You saw guys like Paul George, James Harden, like I said, getting to their spots, being real aggressive. And that's why you had that 39-16 lead going into the second quarter. They almost had 40 points in the first quarter. They shot the ball real well. We only had the Mavericks only had 4 points in the paint at the end of the first quarter. It's like when they're not shooting the ball well, it's like the confidence goes down. When you seen the other team hit all these crazy shots, it does something to you mentally. Basketball is a very mental game as well. In the second quarter, the 3-point shot, it still wasn't there. That 0 for 10 turned in no that 0 for 7 turned into 0 for 10. The Clippers controlled everything in the first part of the second quarter. You saw James Harden get to his spot. What you saw was it was a plethora of step back threes. It was a lot of him creating as far as getting to like the step back mid. Back when James Harden was like the best shooting guard in the NBA, we saw like a variety of ways he could score, which was he got to the hole a lot more, got to the paint a lot more, step back threes. He was very athletic and he was very crafty. I like to think of him as a better version of what Manu Ginobili was. Everybody knows Manu Ginobili was very crafty. He could get to his spot. He was very fast. He also showed the Euro step. He was a very crafty left-handed player. If you know, left-handed players are more difficult to guard, just because it's the offhand. You're not used to that. So what I saw was James Harden get to his spot. He had 13 points. He ended up hitting a step back three. So his 13 went to 16, and they actually had the defense. I want to zone in on the defense from the Clippers because what I saw, Terrence Mann, the broadcaster said a shout out to JJ Redick and Doris Burke. They brought up a stat that when Terrence Mann is on Luka Doncic, he's 4 for 20 from the field. So what that means is, from an athletic standpoint, he's quick enough to keep up with Luka, and Terrence Mann is a strong guard. So everybody know Luka. I don't want to say Luka is stocky, but like he's more heavy on the heavy side from an athletic standpoint. So it's a pretty good matchup. Like I said, Terrence Mann is very athletic, and with Luka, remember I said Luka had 2 fouls in the first quarter. Paul George was actually on the bench in the second quarter. He came back in the game. Luka had a play where he thought he got fouled, and he kind of mouthed off at the referee, which got a tick. And in certain instances, when it's time for a team to shoot a free throw, and I believe in as far as the technical foul goes, the opposing coach can have whatever player he goes to that he wants to go shoot the free throw line. Goes to the free throw line to shoot the technical foul. And what I thought wasn't smart about Luka was Paul George was on the bench. He got to get back in the game and shoot a free shot, which can create more rhythm. You shoot a shot when nobody's in your face in the game. Normally, when you're doing that, you probably warming up in practice, but he got a chance to do that in the game. Nobody's around you. The referee's throwing you the ball. Nobody's on the side like a regular free throw. It's just you in the basket. So you got to see a shot go in. I feel like that's another thing contributing to his rhythm. I thought that wasn't very smart by Luka. Something did go well in the midst of the Clippers run. Like I said, James Harden, Paul George, they get into that spot. They hit from three. Those two actually combined 7 for 9 from the 3-point line. Then something pretty special happened. Kyrie Irving, I want to say shout out to him. He had a 40 ball today. Watching Kyrie play from the outside looking in, I was always appreciative of his skill set. I felt like it was a privilege to watch somebody like that play the game of basketball. But when it's like he playing for the team that you love, it's like you invested, and you really get to appreciate his level of skill on a different, it's a different level of appreciation for some things that he can do. He went on a run, like an individual run, like a 9-0 run. You saw him hit 3-point pull-ups. He hit a mid-range. He hit an and one bucket off of mid-range. You even saw him driving on the fast break. He faked the three into a pass to Derek Lively for a bucket. The Clippers hit a three in the midst of all this, but Kyrie hit another three. So Kyrie versus the Clippers, he went on a 12-3 run by himself. And what we saw coming out of a timeout that they had to call because Kyrie was getting the crowd back into it. We saw Paul George and James Harden, they continue to respond. And around this time in the game, the Mavericks had erased the 30-point deficit. They were inching in slowly but surely, but Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, they were responding to everything. Paul George, he ended up hitting more threes. He ended up having 26 points at the end of the first half. We saw Kyrie Irving pick up his third foul, but we did see great energy in the second quarter. We saw the Mavericks pick up defensively. We picked up the pace, but the Clippers, they responded to everything that we did. Um, in the end of the second quarter, the Mavericks still shot poorly from the 3-point line. We were 4 for 15 for 26%, and we saw the Clippers shoot 14 for 21 from the 3-point line at 66%. Though the one thing that the Mavericks did do well in this game, we shot 11 for 11 from the free throw line in the beginning of the at the end of the first half. For my notes. Going into the third quarter, it was pretty much it was about runs that we could make. We was trying to really erase this deficit as much as we could. Kyrie Irving made the first bucket coming out into the third quarter, followed by a Zubac post shot. So that was kind of back and forth. Luka had a 2-point shot that erased the deficit down to 13. One thing the Mavericks did started to do, we started to get closer to the rim. We saw Kyrie really start to put his imprint on the game. He was pretty much the primary offense with mid ranges. He had a left hand layup. He even cut the lead down to 10 points. But one thing that did happen that was out of our favor, though we did start attacking the rim, we saw a plethora of like lobs. Derek Lively. We saw Derek Jones Jr. He missed the lob, got the rebound, went up for a dunk. He even missed that. The game started to get pretty chippy at that point. It was a lot of chippy fouls, a lot of no calls. The referee, it did let him play. The one thing that was in our favor, Paul George and James Harden, I believe they combined for 3 points in the whole third quarter. And with that, we saw the Mavericks. We saw the scoreboard change in our favor. It was 78 to 71 Clippers. We saw 78 to 73 Clippers. We saw us get as close as to 2. Derrick Jones Jr. had a 3-point basket in the corner from a pass by Luka Doncic. We ended up cutting it down to 2. It was 78, 76. It was very chippy. It was physical. But what I want to get the Mavericks credit for, it was like relentless effort, especially on the defensive end. They really, really got after it. We saw plays like Maxi Kleber got a steal. We saw Derek Lively go up with a block. But the problem is the turnovers. We had a lot of turnovers in this game, and off some of those turnovers, we saw Paul George. He got a bucket off a turnover. We held them to 16 points in the third quarter. We ended up scoring 29. At the end of the third, it was 82 to 78. Actually, Harden and Paul George combined for 2 points in the whole third quarter. But I feel like the defensive presence we had in the third quarter, it kind of took a toll. I had a fear coming into the series after game 1, and my fear was kind of validated for the most part. Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, they really had to put forth. Well, I'm gonna say Kyrie in this game. Kyrie had to put forth a Herculean effort, really to get the Mavericks even close to this game. I feel like the run that he went on in the second quarter, it kind of got the Mavericks going in some positive ways, defensively and offensively. But if it wasn't for his magical run, the Mavericks, this game probably wouldn't even been close, if we're being honest. But some of my fears was that the Mavericks would gas out Kyrie and Luka just based off of everything that they have to do. They have to do any and everything at all times on the offensive end of the floor. Kyrie had 40. Luka had a 20.9 triple double in the. It was either in the I think it was the third quarter. Luka Doncic got a rebound, if I'm not mistaken, and collided with Terrence Mann. And I think Luka already has some knee concerns, and I feel like this particular collision kind of took Luka out of the game in certain aspects. You saw him grimacing up the court. I saw him get taken out the game, and Jason Kidd was getting ready to put him in the game, and he was standing at the scores table. He had his hands over his knees. He was kind of grimacing, and you could kind of see it. He was lagging up the court. On offense, he looked really out of character at times. I'm like, yeah, he's not there. It's like a lot of moves that he would make, he was kind of hesitant. He still attempted his step back threes, but it just was something different about it. You kind of saw it for the rest of the second half. And Luca actually had a floater to cut the game to two. But on the other end of the court, Norman Powell, he had a pretty decent game off the bench too. I believe he had 11 points. He had a layup to cut the lead back to four, and Mason Plumlee had two inside baskets. One was an alley oop by Russell Westbrook, and one was a point that he scored on himself. One of those baskets was actually a point or off a turnover. We had 17 turnovers, and the Clippers converted 23 of those into points. Oh, they converted 17 turnovers into 23 points. I apologize. They ended up going on an 8-0 run. And at that point, you kind of see like the Mavericks started to run out of gas a little bit. Luka was hurt. He was tired. It was one play. I want to say we got the rebound on the defensive end and we was running up the court. Derrick Jones Jr. or PJ Washington, I believe it was PJ Washington. He had the ball and he looked back. Kyrie and Luka was behind him. And you could see that they both were very, very exhausted. So he just ran up the court himself. He had one man to beat. He ended up going for a bucket and one. But as the fourth quarter progressed, you kind of saw that the Clippers they got whatever they wanted. They were very aggressive. James Harden started to take over, especially in the fourth. But some positives, Maxi Kleber was able to hit a three. He actually tied the game 98-98. But the problem was James Harden was getting to his spots. We saw him hit like 6 floaters off the left in the fourth quarter. The thing about it is when you got a player like James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, when they're both hot, it's kind of like you compromising the defense because they're both offensive creators. They can create their own shot. And Paul George has the ability to play off the ball too because he's a good jump shooter. So what you saw was if Norman Powell was on the floor, Paul George is on the floor, you can't help off of James Harden. You kind of got to let him get to his spot, and they weren't able to defend him. Like I say, he's a crafty ball handler. He's a crafty offensive playmaker. So he was able to get to his spot with ease. You saw a variety of banks off the floor, floaters off the bank into the basket. You saw some that just went straight into the hoop. They were able to get what they wanted inside the paint. And you could tell we started running out of gas. Kyrie, he scored a three and he hit a midi. He actually gave us the lead. He had an and one on the layup. But the problem is the Clippers responded by every run. Paul George had a play where he was in the corner, and Derrick Jones Jr. was against him. He made him readjust. Triple threat mode, triple threat. You going through your legs. You about to gather your jump shot, and Paul George hit a clutch three. It was kind of ridiculous because Derrick Jones Jr. he couldn't play too much more better defense than that. Excuse me, James Harden and Paul George, they combined for 66 points. James Harden had 16 points. He had 15 points in the fourth quarter. We couldn't recover. They ended up winning 116-111. Just to go over some player stats, like I said, Paul George had 33 points, 8 assists. James Harden had 33.7 assists. This was actually the first time in the Clippers history that two players had 30 points, 5 assists apiece in a playoff game. You saw Ivica Zubac had 13 points. Terrence Mann, Norman Powell both had 11 points. The Mavericks, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, they combined for 69 points. Luka Doncic had a 29-point triple-double. Kyrie had 5 assists, 7 rebounds. They both played 45 minutes apiece. That kind of shows you that Jason Kidd is kind of in a tough predicament right now because with either of them off the floor, one of those players has to be on the floor at all times. I saw it in the regular season. Luka go to the bench or Kyrie go to the bench. One of them still be in until the other one comes back in the game and vice versa. So it's like kind of compromise offensively because we have no creation on offense. I really want to see that get addressed in the offseason. We really saw my concerns come alive today because we really have struggled from offensive creation. Though Derrick Jones Jr. and PJ Washington combined for 14 points, we just saw a Herculean effort by Kyrie just to keep us in the game because without those two players, our offense is shot for the most part. Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, they both had amazing plays on defense. Either of those guys were unable to get into double digits as far as scoring is concerned. Um, yeah, I feel like the momentum has swung back in the Clippers' favor, going back to LA. And one thing I did notice, the two the two things that the Clipper losses have in common is Kawhi Leonard played both of those games. If you're Tyronn Lue, I would seriously consider just shutting Kawhi down for the remainder of the series. Because to be honest with you, they play better without him. The offense isn't that stagnant. You have two players in Paul George and James Harden that are already in rhythm. You know, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but the game speaks for itself. Like I said in episode 1, you kind of saw the offense of the Clippers get stagnant because Kawhi Leonard, he was in the game and he was trying to find his offense. You have players that's already enrolled. You have a chemistry that's already created. This team is rolling right now, and especially with performances like this from James Harden and Paul George, who are guys that are on the tail end of their prime, but they still have moments where they can be stars in this game, and they showed tonight. The Clippers, excuse me, they ended the game with 53% from the field and 62 from 3-point line. They went 18 for 29. They played amazing. From a shooting standpoint, from the free throw line, it wasn't as good, 66%. The Mavericks, we had pluses. We out rebounded them 42 to 29. We had 14 offensive rebounds, and we shot 80% from the free throw line. We shot 50% from the field. The problem is these turnovers. Correction, they had 16, not 17, but the Clippers were still able to convert those into 23 points. Um, yeah, I just feel like the momentum has swung back in the Clippers' favor, going back to LA. I don't I don't know how, if the Mavericks were able to win this series, I'm really gonna be concerned at the gas, at the mileage of Kyrie and Luka at this point because they're having to do so much. I feel like, especially in game 2, they have to put out so much energy. Um, and actually, something interesting took place in this series when I was on the first episode with the kid Rod. We both agreed that we thought game 1 was an anomaly as far as the way the Clippers shot the ball. It turned out they was able to put yet another performance like this up. That's concerning. 62% from the 3-point line. That's kind of alarming. They're shooting the ball at a very high clip. Yeah, I feel like the momentum is definitely on the Clipper side, and I feel like it's gonna be kind of tough to get this back in our way of things. Hopefully, we could really get a win. I feel like today was the day we really needed the win. At best, they go back to LA and win, and we'll come back to Game 6 and close them out. But now they could potentially go up 3-2, so it's cause for concern. This may be a 7-game series. I'm definitely concerned, but hopefully, Luka is that knee doesn't continue to bother him, and hopefully Kyrie isn't too spent on energy from having to put forth a great performance. This will be a performance that I'll remember, especially in his career. But yeah, that's all I got, man. The Clippers won 116, 111. The series is tied 2-2. I think this will be a long series. It's a very entertaining series, too. I appreciate y'all, man. Holla at your boy.